Most tennis players are way too physically tight on just about all of their swings, and there's a diagnostic that I've used over the years on the forehand specifically that I'd like to share with you today. I'll show you some footage of a recent student that I just had. But first, let's go over exactly what we're looking for. I'm using Novak here because the student we're about to look at uses a semi-Western grip like Novak. And I want you to keep an eye on Novak's racket and track with your eyes what is currently the top edge of his racket as he makes contact. And watch how, upon making contact, that top edge of the racket starts releasing and turning in a circle, and it continues to smoothly release and turn over. And if you've been keeping an eye on that initially top edge of the racket, it is now already the bottom edge of the racket. So the racket has made a full flip or turn, 180-degree rotation here, from pointing towards the tip of the racket, towards the camera. And now before even coming all the way across to the left side of his body, the tip of the racket is now pointing fully away from the camera. And I just want you to notice how that release or turn of the racket frame has happened continuously and smoothly, and it's not interrupted or slowed down or frozen in place. It just continues to turn, and that energy and momentum continues wrapping around his body and finishing over on the left side. So let me show you now the student that I worked with just last week. Great athlete, excellent kinetic chain, and it's so tempting to want to believe that if you move your body strongly, then the racket's motion is just kind of naturally take care of itself. There's so many parts about tennis that we just want to believe, well, if I'm doing A, then B makes sense. Like, it's logical. If I set my body in motion in the correct order and I'm strong and athletic, then the release of the racket and all those types of little nuances and details are probably, they're just going to happen naturally on their own, right? Well, here's the student that I just had. Notice how he coils his body really strongly. He's transferring his energy forward. He unwinds his body at the right time to meet the ball in a super strong position. His hips are facing forward. His chest is facing forward. And now, watch the top edge of his racket right here as he makes contact. And as we slowly go through towards the finish, watch how the top edge of the racket stays on the top. You see how he does not have that circular release. At this point, the tip of Novak's racket was pointing fully away from the camera, and the top edge of the racket was already fully turned and transitioned over to the bottom. And so as my student finishes, look at how he just holds that racket position. And so for all of this travel over on the left side of the body, he has inhibited the natural rotation of the racket. There is circular force that has been delivered into the point of contact from the bottom of the swing and then up through the point of contact, and that circular, rotational energy of the racket wants to continue. What gets set in motion wants to continue in motion unless something gets in the way, unless something inhibits that natural momentum of the racket. And in this case, something is inhibiting the natural momentum of the racket, and it is the tension and the tightness in the arm and in the hand, in the grip of this student. Strong player, strong athlete, great ball striker, but frequently he would just launch a ball in the middle of an exchange back and forth. And the reason why he was trampolining and launching the ball is because right at the critical moment when he was supposed to be allowing the racket to move freely, he was clamping down and holding on tight, inhibiting the natural circular motion of the racket, and that is going to launch the ball. You will not get the curve, you will not get the margin or the spin, or frankly, the racket head speed and the pace and the tempo that you're supposed to on your shot. And so because this player is holding on to the racket, he's not getting the spin or the power or the consistency that he should. So with a little bit of work, this is, I don't know, probably about half an hour later or so, watch the results here. After doing a little bit of work and having him create a more passive hand and forearm, watch how now the racket is releasing. And just like Novak, the top edge of the racket is turning over. It's becoming the bottom edge of the racket. And also like Novak, at contact, the tip of the racket is pointing towards the camera. And then by the time the racket gets over to the left side of his body, now the tip of the racket is pointing away from the camera. And I know it seems silly. It seems dumb. And it's on the surface, it seems like this is just nonsense. And it's just excessive kind of talk and blabbering about nothing. But letting it happen is hard for most players. Most tennis players have at least a degree of tightness and tension around the point of contact, even athletic, strong ones like this particular player. And frequently, it takes work to let the racket do what it wants to do. And I know that sounds super counterintuitive, and it sounds like it's something that should just happen on its own. But for everyday athletes like us, very frequently we bring bad habits to the table, and it causes movements that don't make any sense on paper. And what's even worse is frequently when we get those results where like the ball trampolines off the racket, we just bring more effort and more energy to the table to try to keep it in the court by kind of steering the ball and adding more topspin with effort and muscle and tension, and that exacerbates the problem and it deepens it and it makes it even worse. So, believe it or not, on the serve, on your forehand, on your backhand, frequently you're going to have to work at doing nothing. Frequently you're going to have to make a very concerted effort to not make an effort, right? Like the whole fix here was to have him practice being fully passive and fully loose. And at first, he lost control of the racket, and the racket was just kind of flopping around. Then we reintroduced just a little bit of control of the path of the racket, but it was dramatically less tightness and tension than what he was used to before. And finding that sweet spot can be really challenging, and the student did a great job in just a couple minutes figuring that out. If you'd like to see more of that footage, maybe I'll make a more in-depth lesson about this on the Essential Tennis channel. Just wanted to give the kind of 30,000-foot view of the principle or the idea today. Thanks for watching. Hope you're doing well. Keep up the great work in your game.